Meet the rule benders. For those looking for a competitive edge, rule benders are focused firmly on the finish line and will do anything in their power to get there first. Some break the laws of the game, others the laws of the land. Whatever the case, they go about their business the wrong way. Sooner or later, rule benders break because they can never hide from the truth. There are many motivations behind why athletes would venture into the risky world of rule breaking in order to come out on top. Financial pressures, media pressures, even individual pressures, and the notion that they are all but invincible. For Diego Maradona in 1986, the pressure of a nation desperate for victory pushed him to bend the rules against a nation who was a political enemy just 4 years prior. On the 2nd of April 1982, Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, a remote UK colony in the South Atlantic, claiming they inherited the islands from Spain in the 1800s. The move led to a brief but bitter 74-day war that left 655 Argentine and 255 British servicemen dead. Fast forward to the 1986 World Cup in Mexico, and Captain Maradona got to exact his personal revenge against the English in their quarter-final clash, scoring a goal with his hand in an illegal act now known in sporting folklore as the Hand of God. Maradona made up for it by scoring another goal, known as the goal of the century for its absolute sheer brilliance, sealing the team's 2-1 win. Argentina went on to win the World Cup that tournament, and even though Maradona had a few other mishaps along the way, like being accused of tax evasion by the Italian authorities, scaring off journalists outside his home with an air rifle, and being caught using performance-enhancing drugs, he will forever be known to Argentinians as the man who single-handedly beat England, literally.
Él está insertado dentro de un momento político de Argentina.
He is part of the history of Argentina
y a su vez, creo que
and of the whole world.
De hecho,
he is synonymous with Argentina.
De Argentina, cuando uno pronuncia la palabra
when you say the word Maradona, you say the word Argentina.
Y Maradona es eso, es algo que está apoyado en uno de los
He is one of the icons, the most classic and unique personalities of the 20th and 21st century.
Particulares del siglo XX y principios de este siglo.
Coming up, peddling with Peds. The use of drugs in sport to get a competitive edge has gone on for centuries, with strengthening herbal teas used by athletes in the chariot races of ancient Rome.
The England team captain was the favorite.
In olden-day marathons, opiates were used to stay awake and alert for hours and hours on end. Cycling wasn't spared the use of performance-enhancing drugs either, and the first documented case in the late 1800s provided the world of sport with its first performance-enhancing drug fatality. Welsh cyclist Arthur Linton may have finished second at the Bordeaux-Paris race in 1896, but did so after ingesting a mix of cocaine, caffeine, and strychnine. He died a few weeks later. Cyclists may have tried other means of crossing the finish line first, with some riders seen taking trains mid-competition to speed up the process. And And then there were those who'd tie fishing line to a wine cork, attach the line to their teen car, put the cork in their mouths, and hang on for dear life to gain some valuable seconds. The first big-name cyclist to publicly admit using performance-enhancing drugs to pedal faster than the rest was Italy's Fausto Coppi. Coppi won 5 Giro d'Italia and 2 Tour de France titles in the 40s and 50s, as well as the World Championship in 1953, making him one of the most decorated cyclists of all time. A pioneer in what he called modern methods to cycling, he openly used amphetamines, stating they were essential in remaining competitive. Used by military men in World War II to stay awake, alert and energetic, Coppi joked, "One day, I will take the wrong pill and pedal backward." But those modern methods are nothing to joke about. Just ask American Lance Armstrong. First of all, it is worth stating the obvious. Lance Armstrong wasn't the only high-profile drug user in cycling. 1967, and Tom Simpson died on the 13th stage of the Tour de France, racing with a combination of amphetamines and alcohol, all while France had doping laws and regulations in place. 1969, and Belgian cycling great Eddy Merckx was disqualified from the Giro d'Italia after being caught using PEDs. 1999, and Marco Pantani was kicked out of the Giro d'Italia for doping, but his case was never resolved, as he was found dead of a cocaine overdose in 2004. 2006, the Tour de France saw all the big names, including Jan Ullrich and Ivan Basso, kicked out for drug use. The winner that year was American Floyd Landis, who later tested positive himself and was stripped of his title after losing his doping case. And then there was 2010, when Alberto Contador's Tour de France victory was short-lived after the Court of Arbitration for Sport uncovered this old chestnut.
The CAS has found that Alberto Contador was guilty of a doping offense, and the sanction is that Alberto Contador shall be suspended for 2 years.
But of all the cases that exist besides the handful mentioned, Lance Armstrong's is by far the most scrutinized and publicized, and perhaps for good reason. The talented and tainted Texan won a bronze medal at the 2000 Summer Olympics in Sydney and 7 consecutive Tour de France titles between 1999 and 2005. His first Tour de France title came just 3 years after being diagnosed with a form of testicular cancer, so advanced he was given almost no chance of survival. This led to another success story, Live Strong, a foundation turned global phenomenon that assisted cancer survivors by raising money and awareness.
If you would have told me that 15 years later, that little organization, that little idea would have raised $500 million, would have touched 2.5 million lives around the world, I would have told you you're crazy. But those are all true.
To say Armstrong wasn't a good athlete is preposterous, when you consider he was once his nation's top-ranked under-19 triathlete, and that when he became a cycling pro, he was always ranked among the best of the bunch, even before the whole doping thing got out of hand. But to say he went about his business as a champion gracefully would be preposterous too. Because eventually Armstrong believed he was greater than the sport of cycling or the performance-enhancing drugs that gave him an edge. And the more he lied about it, the more he believed it.
So you can say, I didn't, and I was subjected to X amount of controls, and they're all negative. That doesn't always work for people.
But while his fans bought into the lies, they totally consumed him until he could run no more. As Armstrong chose to confess his great sin in an interview with Oprah Winfrey.
I view this situation as one big lie that I repeated a lot of times. And as you said, it wasn't as if I just said no and I moved off it.
Right. You were defiant.
Oh, yes.
You called other people liars.
I understand that.
Armstrong was stripped of his Olympic medal and his tour titles. In fact, his results from the end of '98 to 2010 were voided altogether, an enormous asterisk that all but wiped him from the cycling record books. After the public confession, he was then forced to make another painful decision on his road to contrition, that of stepping down from his roles with the Live Strong Foundation.
My fight with cancer was not a made-up thing, and starting Live Strong and building something over 15 years was not a made-up thing. That was a real thing, and it's still important to me.
Armstrong's seemingly impossible goal these days is tougher than any mountain he ever climbed as a cyclist, that of asking for and receiving forgiveness from all those burned by his trail of drug use and lies.
Well, there's certainly mixed feelings, and so I understand that. I feel bad about that, and I'll spend the rest of my life apologizing to many of those people. So, but that's a long process.
Cycling may have had its share of controversy, but the most lucrative sport on four wheels hasn't been exempt. Formula One has dealt with three thrilling situations simply known as the Gates. In 2007, Ferrari claimed that former employee Nigel Stepney gave vital technical information to rival team McLaren, which led to a criminal investigation held in Italy.
Today's evidence given to the FIA by our drivers, engineers and staff clearly demonstrated that we did not use any leaked information to gain a competitive advantage.
A subsequent FIA hearing ruled against Ron Dennis and his team, penalising McLaren for fraudulent sporting behaviour, which resulted in their exclusion from the 2007 constructors' standings and a record fine of $100 million US. McLaren made another Formula One faux pas in 2009, this time as a result of bringing the sport into disrepute by lying to race stewards. The team protested driver Jarno Trulli's third-place finish, which happened by overtaking McLaren's Lewis Hamilton behind the safety car. Behind closed doors, Hamilton claimed he received no instruction to let Trulli pass. But when the radio recordings clearly proved otherwise, McLaren was stripped of their constructor points. In 2009, another gate took place, Crashgate, courtesy of Renault's Nelson Piquet Jr., who strategically crashed his car just a few laps before the end of the Singapore Grand Prix, allowing his teammate Fernando Alonso to casually take the checkered flag behind the safety car. The conspiracy resulted in lengthy bans for managing director Flavio Briatore and director of engineering Pat Simmons. After the break, famous controversial football cases. North American football is a battlefield where big men go to war in an attempt to gain yard after yard before reaching the opposing team's end zone. Pass by pass, route by route. But sometimes that just isn't enough. Other means are used to make the long slog downfield go a little faster and a little smoother. For one team in the cold northeastern state of Massachusetts, this quest to be the best has got them into some hot water. The New England Patriots are one of the NFL's greatest ever teams. Between 1971 and 2015, the Pats have made the playoffs 23 times, been divisional champs 18 times, conference champs 8 times, and Super Bowl champs 4 times. But all the success hasn't come without the controversy in Foxborough. Take an incident that happened between the Patriots and the New York Jets during a September 2007 game. The Pats were caught videotaping the New York Jets defensive coach's signals from their own sideline, which is an unauthorized location. This resulted in unprecedented fines for coach Bill Belichick and the team.
You work all year.
Known as Spygate in NFL circles, it was an embarrassing situation for Belichick, who later confirmed, "It was wrong. We were disciplined for it. That's it. We never did it again. We're never going to do it again." But in 2014, they allegedly did it again.
I feel like I've always played within the rules. I would never do anything to break the rules. I believe in fair play, and I respect the league and everything that they're doing to try to create a very competitive playing field for all the NFL teams. It's a very competitive league. Every team is trying to do the best they can to win every week. I believe in fair play, and I always believe in it for as long as I'm playing.
Quarterback Tom Brady may have felt as though he was a poster boy for fair play, but there was once a time when he was anything but. That's because Deflategate rocked the NFL world in 2014 after it was discovered that footballs were tampered with prior to the Patriots' dismantling of the Indianapolis Colts, 45-7, in the AFC Championship game. The Patriots later went on to win the Super Bowl, but with 11 out of 12 footballs found marginally deflated, it made for comedic fodder when the Pats visited President Obama at the White House.
I usually tell a bunch of jokes at these events, but with the Patriots in town, I was worried that 11 out of 12 of them would fall flat. All right.
Brady was eventually suspended 4 games, and the Patriots fined $1 million. But after a U.S. District Court ruled against the suspension, Brady returned to the field. Fans were left wondering what difference air levels in footballs even makes. And like Barack Obama's joke, the NFL fell flat on its face. There was one incident involving a Patriots player that went beyond breaking sporting law. It broke federal law. Aaron Hernandez was an All-American tight end and quickly became an elite player in the NFL. But his world fell apart in 2013 after he was arrested on charges of murder. The Patriots released Hernandez immediately.
Certainly it's a very tragic thing that happened, and someone loses their life, and but all those things were out of the players' control here. We're not really a part of that situation, so I don't think it does a lot for us to get too much involved in that.
Unfortunately for Hernandez, his involvement in the murder was real indeed.
What say you, Madam Foreperson? Is the defendant not guilty, guilty of murder in the first degree, or guilty of murder in the second degree?
Guilty of murder in the first degree.
Hernandez was on a $40 million contract with the Patriots at the time of the killing, but is now serving a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. It is a harsh reality that every so often rears its ugly head, match fixing, and world football has been its primary target. Games found to have been played with a predetermined result have resulted in lengthy bans, fines, and general embarrassment. While the disease is global, it seems its highest profile scandals have found a home in Italy. Ironically enough, match-fixing scandals in the past has brought out the best in Italian international football. Take the Totonero scandal of 1980, when Italian authorities discovered that Serie A and B players were selling matches for money. One of these players, Paolo Rossi, received a 2-year ban from the sport, only to return in time for the 1982 World Cup. Perfect timing. Rossi led Italy to its 3rd World Cup title, scoring a tournament-leading 6 goals. He was also awarded the Golden Ball as the tournament's best player. Fast forward to 2006, Calciopoli uncovered an elaborate organization where high-profile teams collaborated with referees to rig games. AC Milan was deducted 30 points. Fiorentina lost the chance to play in the Champions League. Lazio weren't allowed to play in the UEFA Cup. But the biggest loser was Calciopoli's biggest player, Juventus. The old lady was stripped of its 2004-05 Champions title and was downgraded to last place in the 2005-06 campaign, meaning they were relegated to Serie B for the first time in club history. But like 1982, Italy used this adversity to rise against the odds, winning its 4th World Cup at the 2006 edition in Germany. In 2012, they were back at it again, embroiled in another match-fixing scandal before the 2012 European Championships. 14 people were arrested and houses were searched, including that of then Juventus coach Antonio Conte, who had never gambled in his life. In the end, Italy made it all the way to the final, but couldn't repeat their World Cup success post-match fixing scandal, losing to Spain 4-0. Football players are so focused on taking care of business on the pitch that they sometimes forget to take care of business off it. Like paying their taxes. In January 2016, the culprit in this expensive oversight was Argentine midfielder Javier Mascherano, who was fined €815,000 for failing to pay taxes on his 2011 and 2012 earnings. He's not the first Barcelona player accused of tax evasion. Superstar duo Lionel Messi and Neymar have also been embroiled in evasion cases, leading one Spanish sports journalist to believe the players aren't the only ones negatively affected by the financial forgetfulness.
It is clear that the tax office has set their eyes on footballers earning big sums of money. And as a consequence of this investigation, cases like this one surface. It is a coincidence that we've seen more Barcelona players leaving the courthouse. There have been minor cases with Iker Casillas and Xabi Alonso, but we have generally seen only Barca players facing trial. I think this is a coincidence, but it damages the image of the club.
While these tax issues can be associated to assigning image rights to companies located in so-called tax havens, the moral of the story for athletes is a simple one. Make sure you pay your taxes. Still to come, the chief of the Ped Police. At the 1988 Summer Games in Seoul, Ben Johnson became a sporting pariah after winning 100-meter gold, only to have it stripped hours later after testing positive for steroids in what was the first big Olympic doping scandal. But he wasn't the only one. In fact, 5 of the 7 who raced that final have been involved in doping of some kind, an illicit act that soon turned another athlete into a record book asterisk. Marion Jones was stripped of all her 5 medals won at the Sydney Games, even lying to federal agents about it, which cost her 6 months in jail.
I recognize that by saying that I'm deeply sorry, it might not be enough and sufficient to address the pain and the hurt that I've caused you. Therefore, I want to ask for your forgiveness.
The International Olympic Committee forgave, but couldn't forget. Hence the creation of the World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA. Funded by the IOC and various national governments, its mandate is to promote, coordinate, and monitor the fight against drugs in sport. Its ringleader between 2003 and 2016 was David Howman, a former highly ranked junior tennis player turned sports lawyer turned WADA Director General.
Look, I think what we win is a lot of battles, but winning the war is going to be elusive, because you're always going to find, no matter what part of society you work in, that there will be some who want to cheat, who want to take the shortcuts to succeed. And regrettably, that's the case in sport.
Roadblocking the shortcuts could seem like an endless challenge, with sports science and doping becoming more sophisticated and elusive. WADA will need to stay on its toes. Pressure may force people to use performance enhancers, and greed might make a rich man avoid the tax man. Patriotism may push a man to score a goal with his hand, and fear of failure may push a Patriots quarterback to illegally deflate footballs. Whatever the case, gone are the days when sport was a pastime to forget the pressures of the world. And until those days return, sport will always be looking for ways to bend the rules. And that is the truth.